Hey everybody, welcome back to Guys Night Lab. I'm Jesus Velasquez.
I'm Jordan Zacharias.
And welcome to another episode of Flicks or Treats. And today we are going to focus on remakes.
Yes.
Remakes of scary movies, horror movies. I guess you could say movies that you watch during Halloween time. But there are a lot of remakes. Remakes have kind of been a big thing since probably the early, mid-2000s.
You know what, Zeus, before we get into this, guys, be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to crush that like button down below. We really want to get our votes up this month.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button.
Give us a thumbs up. Smash that like button. Leave a comment. Subscribe. Do whatever you want.
Sorry, we just had to get that out of the way.
We had to get that out of the way. Now that we got our sponsors out of the way, we're talking about remakes right now. And like I said, remakes kind of came out more in the early 2000s. And these are like the remakes or reboots of movies, not sequels. So it's not like we talked in another series about movies that came out later on, but then they had different titles. So I don't know if they're like part 3 or part 4, or who knows that. But these are the remakes of movies that had already come out. So one of the, not very first, but one of the, I guess you could say first remakes that came out that kind of started that whole trend of remaking in Hollywood was Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so
Zack Snyder, 2003 or 2004?
2004.
Okay.
Yeah, so that one came out in 2004. And that one, like, I love that one because I've seen the original Dawn of the Dead, and it's a lot slower pace. I mean, obviously there's a lot of...
I love the original, too. It's a classic.
Yeah, it's great, but for me, it's just slower pace, you know?
Right.
There's a lot of, like, Romero goes, you know, he calls back to just kind of, like, consumerism and stuff like that.
Right.
But with this one, it's just, like, action-packed, high pace, like, just from the get-go.
Snyder's more interested in the you know, the special effects, the gore, the fast pace, the action.
Yeah.
And it's a big one, which is good to mention, too, is that I think it was the first case of fast zombies, right?
Yeah.
So, like, fast zombies are common now, but back then you just hadn't seen them before. It's like it went from that to 28 Days Later, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, zombies have changed. Everything's fast now.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, so zombies, it's like that whole fast thing. It's like, oh, wait, when did they become fast? And it's just like, and that's what I think it grabbed. It's like, oh, my gosh, like, you better run. Oh, my gosh. Like, go away. But, yeah, Dawn of the Dead is, the remake is, I mean, and it's not even a new movie. Like, 2004, that's like 16 years ago. So it's not necessarily, so that one's due for a remake as well.
Yeah, we're due for a remake of the remake.
Yeah, exactly. So, but then Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out, and that was more of a, like, kind of a gritty...
Was that also around the same time, 2003,
yeah,
2004?
2003, 2004, somewhere around there.
Okay.
I like that one because it was just a little more modernized. But it's kind of like, that would be a classification of an actual remake, because the first one is kind of like, it gives you this idea of like a gritty, grainy, is this a real movie? Like, is this a real documentary? This one
almost shot on home video.
Yeah.
Feel. Yeah.
This one is like, you know, it's a remake. Obviously, it's made in Hollywood. It has a big production. It's polished.
Yeah.
I like it though. It's a good story. It's creepy.
I know that we both love a common thing in it, which is Arlie Ermy.
Oh yeah,
he is so creepy.
Great guy. If you don't know who Arlie Ermy, he was the guy from Full Metal Jacket.
Gunny
he was
in Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
Sergeant, yep.
And so little note, I met Arlie Ermy
me too.
at a steakhouse in and I met him in the bathroom. I was in the stall, the urinal, and I was just like, yeah, and then I look over. Every time someone opens there, I look over, and I'm like, hey. Because he's pretty tall. He's like 6'2" or something. I'm not that tall, so 6'2" is tall. so he was like 6'2", and I look at him, and he's got like the whole like Wrangler jeans and like the baseball cap and the flannel shirt.
Yep.
And I didn't want to be like, are you Arlie Ernie? Like, I'm like, I looked at him, I'm like, hey. And he just did that whole kind of like gruff, like, hey. You know, like, I'm like, okay. And so it was just like, I was like, hi. So
I told someone meeting him, I said meeting him is interesting because he's the first like square person I've ever met.
Yeah.
He was just like this chiseled block of just Marine. Like he was just this solid dude.
But he was like
very nice too.
Like how he is in his movies. I mean, I met him in the bathroom for like a few minutes. I mean, he just came off as like that guy. I mean, a lot nicer, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he could turn into his characters if he had to.
Yeah.
So, anyways, back to the remakes. As time goes on in like the 2010s, we get a lot of remakes from Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. Even Fright Night had a remake. The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh yeah.
The Thing had a remake, but it wasn't. That was a prequel, so
Yeah.
we'll leave that one out of there.
That was interfered with by studios too. I don't think it was the director's fault on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, which we won't talk about that. We'll talk about
We'll
the thing
another
later.
time.
Yeah. So, Child's Play just had a remake recently.
Mark Hamill as Chucky. He
Yes.
did a great job.
The Hitcher had a remake in 2007. It was
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
but the original Hitcher, if you haven't seen it, is an amazing movie.
Rutger Hauer. This man
Hauer.
introduced it to me. And
I
I
did.
said, "You're right. It's amazing."
It is seriously one of the most stressful movies you will watch. The original, not the remake. So
Edge of your seat.
yeah,
for
a lot
sure.
of the unfortunate thing about all of these things is like the remakes do not hold up, to the originals. Some do.
Yeah.
Some are a little more, like we said, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a little more polished. The Halloween one from 2018, that one I like that one. That one's kind of it's not a remake, but it's almost a sequel. So
Let's put it this way: comparing it to the two Rob Zombie remakes, I did not like those.
yeah, Rob Zombie was. I mean, I know Rob Zombie has his own vision and his own ideas, but
Every character is just a caricature. It's like everything's so over the top and ultra violent, and the people are the worst people imaginable.
yeah,
And it wasn't reinventive and fun to me. Like,
Well,
there's nothing fun about those movies.
psychological. There's just like I know he's trying to paint a picture psychologically of like pain and hurt and stuff like that of upbringings.
But we didn't need to know that
Yeah.
about Michael Myers. It was scarier when you didn't know why he was a psychopath.
Well, I mean, there's no empathy either. It's just like it's scarier when you don't know why. Like, there's just no reason why. I
Right.
think that's what makes things scary. It's like, why do people do evil things? Well, because I had this and this and this happen to my life. And it doesn't take the evil away, but it gives you an understanding. Like, okay, now I have some empathy for this person.
It's like the freaking metachlorians in Star Wars, the prequels, where all of a sudden the Force is explained by just something in your DNA. Like, oh, you have metachlorians, so now you can use the Force.
Oh no.
And it's like, oh, you just ruined the whole cool idea
Yeah.
that it's something spiritual and mythical and
Oh.
ethereal. You know what I mean? Like,
I kind of just fell asleep during those movies and made my own plot.
anyway, same idea.
But so a lot of these remakes didn't have a lot of remakes now have like the money power and the budget to make it look nice, make it a lot clearer, glossier, and stuff like that. But they're losing the story. Like some of the story, they try to get. Okay, so let's take for an example, Friday the 13th, the remake. We had gone through the whole Friday series, and we actually ended, ironically, the last Friday movie, Friday the Jason Goes to Hell, the same night that the new Friday the 13th remake came out in the movie theaters. We had high hopes to go watch it.
Yeah, really. high
Jason
hopes.
or Jordan left, and he was very like, I think I wanted to like it, so I was like, oh, it wasn't that bad. I recently saw it like a couple months ago, and it was bad.
Yeah,
Like,
he was like, "You're right," because I watched it too. We didn't mean to, but we watched it around the same time
Yeah.
again a couple months ago, just separately. And yeah, and I asked him like, "What do you think upon the second viewing?" Because I'd only seen it
Yeah.
twice, also. So I don't think either of us had really seen it since it came out in the theater, maybe more than twice.
yeah.
And yeah, so I was like, "What do you think?" He's like, "Ugh," and I was like, "Yeah, I had the same feeling going back. I thought maybe I would like it more upon revisiting."
That's what I
but
thought so too.
no.
I thought I'm like, oh, maybe we're just being bitter and whatever, but it didn't hold up because it wasn't a Friday the 13th movie. And with a lot of these remakes, even if like Ghostbusters, if we could say that Ghostbusters remake, that's for a Halloween movie.
Right.
That was an awful remake. It's like, why are we remaking this? Like, obviously,
Yeah, I never
We're
saw
gonna-
that one.
it was just super tryhards, like they really wanted to
Preachy.
just it wasn't necessarily preachy. Like there was
Okay.
there was definitely scenes where they were like, oh, guys hate us and look at the whatever, but it wasn't as preachy. And the thing is, like, I went into
I just
it,
heard it wasn't that good of a movie.
it wasn't. They tried so hard, and what sucked was that they had pretty good actresses that I think are funny in a sense.
Oh yeah, I thought they had a ton of funny people in it.
But they just never utilized them. And this is what I always said. They tried to be Bankman. All of them wanted to be Bill Murray, and it's like, if they all were just their own, like if they were all just their own characters, like who they are and what makes them funny and famous, then that would have been great. But they
I
all
gotcha.
they
I
all
gotcha.
wanted to be the comic relief
Yeah.
character, and it's like, well, you can't all be like, one of you has to be the straight one. One of you has to be the straight character, the laced. And the thing is, like, they did have those roles. They had their, but then they'd go back to being the goofy one, like
Yeah. Okay.
dancing or whatever. It's like, no, like,
So that sounds okay. Sorry to interrupt. I was going to say that. Then that sounds again. I didn't see it. That sounds like the polar opposite of like the Evil Dead remake, which I don't know if we mentioned yet, but I thought that was a really intense, good remake because it was so intense. It didn't have a lot of humor.
Yeah.
And so it was a good, intense horror movie. It sounds like with that one, they just went the opposite way, where it was like there's just, and I know what you mean with a lot of the newer remakes, where there's no story.
Yeah, they lose the story on the budget, and the thing is, like, the writers
or the characters you don't care about.
Well, what happens is I think they just, like, Hollywood gives a lot of money, and they've hired a writer who says, "Oh yeah, I'm a fan," but a fan means like, "Hey, I'm gonna check out this movie over the weekend and take some notes," and it's like that's not a fan. Like, you got to get someone that actually likes these movies, and it's like, hey. Okay, perfect example. If you ever seen, and Bill Burr mentioned this on a podcast, on his podcast, that if you've ever seen the show Cobra Kai on Netflix, it used to be on YouTube.
Yeah, you were
TV.
telling me it's good.
It's amazing. But Bill Burr mentioned this, is that he loves this show because it's cheesy, but they always go back to the well, is what he says. They always go back to the well because they're making it its own thing now, but they always go back to the original Karate Kid or Karate Kid 2 or Karate Kid 3.
With their references.
Or their setups for the next episode in the new season. And that's because they're like, these guys are fans of the Karate Kid or the 80s or whatever.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like, if you're going to hire a director, don't hire a horror director that's artsy or whatever, or maybe he made a scary movie over here or there or did something. Get someone that's actually like, hey, I loved 80s horror, or hey, I love Nightmare on Elm Street, or I love this. Like, it doesn't have to be their favorite movie, but they have to have some sort of knowledge of it. And I think when these directors get this money or are hired, it's not like on the top of their list. On the top of their list is, hey, make it look good, make me some money, sell it with the trailer, and then just write a good story that goes with it. And unfortunately, a lot of remakes are not that great. I've been going back and looking at some of because some of these remakes are 15 years old, 10 years old for sure. And I'm kind of thinking like, okay, maybe I didn't give them a chance because we hate remakes. We love our originals, don't touch our original. It's good.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, let me go back and give them a shot. And yeah, still some of them don't stand the test of time. Dawn of the Dead for sure. I love it.
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw, ironically, yes, good. Evil Dead
holds up.
Fright Night, that was it was oddly
Colin
entertaining.
Farrell, right?
Yeah,
I didn't see that one.
Colin Firth? No, Colin Farrell. You're right, Colin Firth.
I'm sorry, I didn't see all of Nightmare on Elm Street remake. What I saw, I was not impressed at all. The Friday the 13th remake, 2009, not impressed at all.
Yeah,
I haven't seen a good horror remake or anything in a while, other than the newest Halloween movie, which I think could have been better. But I'm excited to see what they do with Halloween Kills, which is coming out next year, I think.
So it's weird because the Halloween is it's like, it's not a remake because it's technically a sequel, because they call back to the original, but it's kind of like it's a reimagining, I guess what you could say. So I mean, it is drawing back from the original source. So I guess we could throw it in there. The Crazies, that was another one. That was actually a really good remake.
Oh, I didn't see that one. Okay.
Yeah, that was. If you haven't seen
is
the
that
Crazies,
Josh Jackson?
No, it's the guy from Justified, and
okay,
I forget his name, but yeah, it's actually a really good. If you haven't seen it,
haven't seen it. I'll check it out.
But so then we get into other remakes, but we're not going to get into that right now. Of like foreign movies, like Let the Right One In or Let Me In, or The Ring, Ringu, and then The Ring. I love The Ring.
I do too.
Yeah, that was a really great movie. So we're just focusing primarily on just movies that are not, let's say, American made, but just maybe not foreign because we're just focused on the ones right now. The Fly, that's technically a remake.
Yep.
Cronenberg.
Yep.
Disgusting, but yikes. But anyways, remakes it's a really interesting thing because as we go on in life right now, and we're in 2020 now, like I said, the first remake came out about 15, 20 years ago. And now we're getting into like a new decade or new world. And it's like, okay, what does Hollywood do? They go back to the well and try to remake stuff. So,
well, and 15 years ago, to be fair, sorry to interrupt, it wasn't the first remakes, but it was the idea that, like you said, that's when I think that they started to realize that, you know what sells tickets at the box office is if we can pull on people's heartstrings. And how you do that is by tugging on their nostalgia factor.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why, obviously, our whole generation, they keep having Transformers movies coming out or Turtles or whatever, because it's like we're going to want to go take our kids to go see it to introduce the next generation to what we liked. But it's like, so it's just a surefire way of getting money. So I
Yeah.
don't think it's directors' faults or anything. It's studios. They want
Yeah.
money. So I get it, but
But it's gonna be weird because I mean, there hasn't been a ton of original content to come out with like remakes. So like, if you think of like movies that came out in 2000, what are they gonna, I mean, Jeepers Creepers maybe. That, I mean, I could see
Yeah.
that as a remake.
yeah.
But like, what other like original horror movie came out like in the 2000s without?
Leave us a comment below. Let
Yeah.
us know what we're missing.
Or what do you think would be a good? I know we don't want our 80s and 90s golden era horror movies, Halloween movies to get touched, but what would make a good remake? What movie wasn't that great that you're like, you know what? Let's remake this in 2020 or this decade. Hey, this movie could have been better than it should have been. Let's remake that one. Let's reboot it. So.
Dare I say Chopping Mall 2020?
No, you leave my baby alone. You do not touch.
Some classical pieces you just don't touch.
Oh yes, that's Chopping Mall is it's an acquired taste. It's like escargot. All right,
Yeah,
you,
yeah, yeah.
you either get it or you don't. It's
true.
And so, anyway, so Halloween remakes, love them or hate them, they're gonna be here, because they make money.
And go check out those ones we mentioned. See what you think.
Absolutely, some of them make money and some of them are entertaining. So check out the ones that we mentioned. All right, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.